Well, Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Thanks for tuning into the channel. This is a video for anyone who received a brand new guitar over the holiday period. Maybe you asked for it, but you haven't yet really been able to kind of get to grips with the basics. You haven't been able to kind of get it in tune, set it up properly. It's just a little mini series of lessons just to get you up and running if you've just unwrapped that sweet guitar but you don't know what to do. So one of the most important things to do, and I cannot stress this enough, is to get the guitar in tune. There's no point learning all the shapes and fingering patterns and how to pick and everything else if you get there and it sounds like this. Beautiful. Now it's very hard to tune the guitar if you don't have a musical ear, you haven't developed your tuning skills and you can't just hear the notes that they should be. So the beginner tuning method that I would recommend is either get a tuner. Luckily my guitar has one built in. A lot of guitars these days, electroacoustics do, or if you've got an electric guitar, for example, your setup, you can add in a tuner, or I've discovered that there's a free app that you can download to your phone, and all you do is you play your guitar at it and it will listen to what you're playing and tell you if you're low or high in your tuning, which is incredible. I never had anything like that before. So I'll put a little link up here to an app that you can download that will just save you a lot of time and effort if you don't want to spend any money at all, because I appreciate, you know, Christmas is an expensive time. You might not want to fork out for another bit of kit. But even if you've got your tuner, it's still important to know what you're trying to do. So I'll turn mine on here just so, you know, I use this all the time to make sure that we kind of all end up at the same place here. So we're going to go for standard tuning as a starting place. This app does actually do E-flat tuning, it does F tuning as well, and open tuning and all that, but we'll start with standard tuning because a lot of your basics will be in standard. And the notes of the strings, I mean, it's a great place to start, isn't it? What are the actual strings called? EA, DG, B and E. I call the lower E the bottom string. It's the closest one to you, the fattest one, the lowest in sound. So for me, I view that as the bottom string, whereas the top string, the highest one, is the E octave. But of course at the moment I'm horrendously out of tune, which does not sound nice. So we're going to start off with the lowest string and we're going to take it over to the high ones here, and using your tuner, make sure that you find that E note. Now what you can do by mistake is if you're too high and you start on an F and then you go up, you can end up breaking the strings. So if you just look here, you'll see the sequence of standard notes from A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then it loops around again, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, etc. I would try and really make sure that you're below where you want to be. So the way to do that is to down tune your first string. This is just to avoid any snappages, any breakages, if you're a real beginner here and you want to make sure you do it right. So just wind that, if it's all stringed up correctly, which it should look like this, wind that as you look at it clockwise. Take it right down. That's low, 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 low. Now gradually wind it up, looking at your tuner. D sharp, we're approaching here. Slightly high. And my tuner helpfully goes green. There we go. Green is good. What I would always advise people to do as well, if you're tuning, is come from below and hit the point where you want to be. Never go above and then tune down. Because in my experience that means that you slip out of tune a lot easier, whereas if you're coming up to it, it just seems to stay in tune a little bit better. So that's your E, then you're going over to the A, the next string. Nice. D next. And each time you're winding these strings up, you're going anti-clockwise on the first three that we've talked about there. So E, A and D, that's anti-clockwise. And they will be in tune if you're using your tuner correctly. And we're going to go over to this G now. And confusingly with the G, if you're looking at it like this, you're winding it the other way, which is clockwise to move it up. B next. You'll get very quick at this in the end, but it's worth just doing it properly the first time. I've overshot it there. And then E again. And if you're going to be really picky, just check your bottom string again. Because sometimes once you've tuned them all up from a long way out, you'll actually find that the bottom ones, because of the increased tension on the neck, have slightly slipped out again. As you can see here, the E needs a little adjustment. Nice. So that's how to tune the guitar with the help of a tuner. If you want a little bonus tip as well, if you want to check that the strings are in tune with each other, but you don't want to keep going back to the tuner, you just think one of them's out, for example, you're going to use the 5th fret on all of your strings except for the G to check with the following string that it sounds the same. So your 5th fret here on your bottom E string is an A. And actually slightly different sounding. If I go back to the tuner, I'll bet I'll find that the E has slipped out slightly. So that's pretty good. There's another way of doing it if you are very used to hearing how your strings sound. You can use harmonics, which is by lightly placing your finger high up on the 12th fret. People find it easier to hear the harmonics, so when they're tuning, because it's in a higher pitch, it's actually easier to work out if the string is out of tune or not. But I wouldn't recommend that method to start with, but it's just worth knowing some of the other ways of tuning just in case you get to that kind of advanced level. We're just going to run through in this lesson how to actually change your guitar strings, because on an acoustic it's a little bit different to the electric with the little pins that you've got down here, and it can be a little bit daunting, especially if you don't have a special guitar tool or anything like that. So we'll just run through that now, just on how to actually change the guitar strings. So lay your guitar down on the floor, or wherever you've got space really. First thing to do is to take off the old manky string, which let's just start with this bottom E. Make sure you spin it the right way, which is clockwise, as you look at it like this, to take it a bit looser before you decide to tackle the peg. If you take that out before, it's going to go pinging, which is not what you need. So we'll just reduce this. That's a bit of a dusty one, isn't it? I'll have to dust that. In fact, it's a good opportunity once you're it's stringless on the guitar to actually dust everything underneath, dust some of the frets. This is a very unusual guitar because however much I seem to dust these frets, they have this weird tendency to kind of, I don't know, change colour, which is very odd. Anyway, so once you've unwound this string, you can actually get guitar tools to help you with this. I've got one, which I would recommend once you start doing it seriously. It looks like this. It's got like a string cutter on the end. It's got a winder, which is this, and then that little attachment there is to actually get the little pegs out, although sometimes I find it's not really strong enough and I need to deploy the tweezers. But this is quite good because it just saves you a lot of twisting. It's a lot faster, and I would say if you're going to give yourself one guitar accessory, apart from maybe a capo, this is a good one. So you unwind the string, take it out of its little slot there. I tend to line it up so that it's straight for when I'm changing the string like that. So dusty, I don't know why, because I play you all the time. Anyway, then we get that string off, and then we go down to this end here. It's quite hard to do this with one hand, actually, whilst holding the camera, and that is supposed to slip underneath this peg, see, like that, and then it's supposed to pull it out. Oh, I think we're in luck here. So we've managed to lever this out, and just if you've never seen it before, this is what the pegs actually look like. they've got a little channel which the guitar string sits in. So you get your new string, and what you're going to do is plop it in the hole, whatever, like that. And then this little plasticky channel bit that we've seen before needs to follow the string down. So make sure that's at a good angle there. And I just push it in to start with, like that. And really, you should be able to just do it with your finger and push it down. They can hammer it in if you like, but as you saw, they can be then pretty tough to get out on the other end. So you take the other side of the string. Now, in this case, I'm not actually putting on a brand new string because these ones are relatively okay. I'm just going to reinsert the old one that we had. But get it through that little hole there. And the reason I've lined it up is just make it easy to put it through like that. I've done it straight. Normally yours won't be all bent out of shape, but obviously this one is. So that's pulled through now, and you've got to wind it over the top, which is a pretty tough move, to be honest with you, but I'll show you how that looks now. I'll just do it first of all. So that's how it should look. So I've taken this bit of the string, looped it round and over and back on itself again. I also actually pulled out a bit of the string from the other end because it was sitting quite low underneath that plastic peg. So I just sort of tugged at it and it came up and gave me a little bit extra. Now you can just simply wind it up like this. I'm not going to use the tool, just to show you where you want the string to go here. So you want it to go underneath the bit that's already there. Pushing down, if you can see, I'm pushing down with my thumb here as well to keep it low. And then let it wind round and round. It's gradually going to come up on its own. You keep going with it. Now, if you've got enough, you can actually make sure it winds underneath that bit there. That's what you want to do. You see how it's going underneath? Just to keep everything nice and tight and locked in. And just keep going round until you hit your E. And the last thing you need to do is snip the end off. I do tend to use this tool for that. Cut it off and you're away. Bye. In fact, you can cut it a bit further down than that and sometimes push it under as well, just to keep things safe. You don't want to hurt your fingers when you're doing this again. This is the ideal length. Because I've used an old string, it doesn't show it quite as well as some of the other windings that I've done, but you want it to be wound round this many times really, or a few times at least, just to give it a little bit more grip, I would say. Well, I hope that's useful just to have a little guide on how you can change your strings. It took me ages to work it out myself because I never had a proper lesson on it. But I think once you've got to grips with the bottom bit here, then you should be okay. And also do not worry if these little pins ping off or snap or break, because sometimes just the nature of them being plasticky or wooden, depending on what guitar you have, they will break, and you can buy them online on Amazon or from a guitar shop or whatever. They tend to be super cheap. In fact, if you've got an acoustic and you're planning on changing the strings relatively often, I would just get a backup set anywhere. I'll put a link to some up here that you can get. In fact, the one that I've had to replace the bottom one on my guitar here, you probably won't be able to see, but it's very slightly different to the rest of them because it actually snapped when I opened the guitar, which was great. And also just make sure they're nice and tight in, because you don't want them to go pinging off. The hardest bit about playing the guitar is not the left hand. I always thought this was the thing, you know, make sure you can play as fast as you can. It's not the left hand that's the problem, it's the right hand that's the issue, and getting this up to speed is really, really tough. So I'm just going to give you a couple of little tips and tricks here with the picking hand. Now, I've done a video on what pick slash uses. That's good for electric guitarists. When it comes to acoustic guitar, there's nothing more annoying than somebody saying, just try loads and see how you feel. You just want someone to say, this is the one for you. I tend to use picks that are just under 1 millimeter thick, and I really like them. And I've used them for a long, long time. I've tried everything. I've tried heavy, I've tried light. You may prefer them, but I would just say start in the middle with something that's just under 1 millimeter, so 0.92, 0.98, something like that, or 1 millimeter itself. Pick one of those, that's the middle gauge. If you're finding that you're catching strings a lot and you feel like it's kind of thick and heavy going, you might want to try a thinner pick. And likewise, if you're finding that it's very floppy and you're kind of dragging across the strings and it's making a very plasticky sound, you might want to try a thicker one. So that's a good place to start. How to hold it? Well, let's put this bad boy down. Not that I ever particularly want to put it down. I would suggest, for a good starter, if you keep that pick facing directly down, let's put the cymbal in front of it, there we go. Facing directly down like that. This is just a good starting place to get an idea of how you're supposed to hold it technique-wise. So you go 90 degrees with your thumb, like that. So do 90 degrees, try and cover the pick with it and leave a little bit dangling out like that. There's probably a bit too much dangling out when I play, but I'm just showing you this thumb bit first of all. Then the first finger points down directly with the pick, like that. Now when I play, there you go, you've got a bit more background there. When I play, I actually hold it probably a little bit more curved round and I try and keep it quite close to the strings. That's just my preference. You might find and see a lot of people playing with a lot of pick showing like that. I don't like that style because it really drags when you're playing acoustic especially. I find it hard to control the guitar when you're so far away with the pick, whereas if you're nice and close like this, if you're kind of keeping it pretty tight up, as long as your fingers aren't touching the strings, it gives you a little bit more, what would I want to say, versatility. The other thing that I want to mention, once you've got a pick grip that you're comfortable with, and you may be one of these people who likes to have two fingers under the pick. I've seen some very famous guitarists use that. I've seen Mark Tremonti has a more of a claw style, which I would describe it as. He kind of comes over, which is totally cool. Like people, you know, if you can play quick, it doesn't really matter. But I'm telling you the one that I use. But something else about acoustics particularly, compared to electric guitars where sometimes it's hard to rest your hand against the body because the strings are quite high up. On this acoustic, for example, when you're playing fast, you can actually rest your hand pretty much on the bridge here where those little pins are. You can rest your hand there and you're going to be able to get quite a lot of speed going. I tend to rest with my two fingers here, and then the palm tends to be there, so that if I want to palm mute, I can just bring it up a little bit into position, and then it sounds more like... a little bit less clear, but a bit more muted. This is the normal sound. Muted is... just keeping it all kind of under control, nice and close together, minimal movements. I think it's not really laziness, although you can think of it like that, but the kind of lazier a picker you are in a sense, the better. You don't want to be doing great big up and down motions. You want to keep it nice and close together. So minimal movement is good, especially if you're doing alternate picking. If you're going to do great big picks, it's going to get difficult. I know I'm throwing a lot of tips at you here, but these are just some of the things that I've found really useful. And this is the final one. I think this is probably the most important one. When I started playing guitar, I really thought that you were supposed to pick directly 90 degrees to the strings like this. Because that's when I used to, well, I still play the violin. Link here. You're supposed to have a straight bow, but with guitar playing, it's not really desirable to pick straight down the neck. It's more common to see people pick in this kind of across diagonal pattern. And it took me a long time to work out why, but it's for things like the angle of the pick being across like this gives you more bite. It also allows you to play harmonics a lot easier because your thumb can drag across the string. Like that. Rather than hitting it straight down, you can't do it as easily. That's why I find the slight angle actually quite useful for my technique. But anyway, so this lesson is all about starting up with your first chords. You're going to want to be able to just play a little bit of something once you've got your new guitar, just to kind of get yourself in the zone. And these 3 chords, I find, are just quite straightforward to play in a sequence in any combination that you like, and they just sound really good. So the 3 we're going to learn are G, D, and a C, but it's like a variation of a C called a C9 chord, which is really beautiful and just a nice advanced one to learn when you're starting off. The pattern is actually used in the accompanying chords of Sweet Child of Mine. So I'll take you through them now, and we'll start off with a D, which is a nice little, what I think of in my head as a triangle shape. You're going to play the top 4 strings, so that's your D string, and these 3, G, B and E. And the notes you're going to play are, testing myself here, so you've got D, A, D, and an F sharp. And I say it's a triangle because if you look here at the fingers that are being pressed down, they're in a triangle shape here. I've seen some people play this chord like this, which is perfectly legitimate, but I think for now, for the sequence that we're playing, I'm going to do it like this. Take a look at the chord pattern here. It should be pretty useful for you. And then we're going to do this C with a 9th in. So that's a case of just moving those 2 fingers there over to this position, and we're playing every string except for the bottom one now. Again, check out the chord pattern that's here. This is the C sus9, it's called C9. That just means you've got a D in it, basically. And the real explanation is because in your series of notes on the guitar, or on any note really, you've got A to G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then it comes around again, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So if you're in the key of C, doing a C chord, your root note is C, and your scale goes C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. So that's the 8th note, is that C, the second time it comes. And then the D is the 9th note. So you've got a D in this, so it's a C9. That's some theory, ladies and gents. Won't bore you with any of that now. Unless you want to know, of course, let me know in the comments and I'll do a bit more theory for you if you like. And then the last chord is this G, and you can optionally leave off the 4th finger. And then that means it's got an E in the top. Or you can play the full chord. Some guitarists don't play the second note. They actually mute that string here with a fat finger, just letting it sort of lie against the string, and it has a sort of more open sound instead of sometimes having this note so low can sound a bit muddy. I'll leave that one up to you as to what you prefer. Also, leaving the E in the top is interesting. And that comes round again to the D. So that sequence in full is like this. There's one more little trick that I want to teach you before we leave this little chord pattern here. This is a great one for beginners, just to do a little bit of embellishment, because a lot of teachers will say, learn your chords before you do anything else. But I think you just want to go straight in with the good stuff, don't you? So on your D, your little finger can touch this note here. So that's a G. And then you can take off the second finger and have that open E string. It's a very nice little shape that's just worth experimenting with. You can add it into your pattern. It's just worth knowing, I think. So that's a good little starting place for your chord playing. You can play another song which is knocking on heaven's door with those chords. G, D, and then that C sus9. So this is the perfect song to practice, I would say. Your Sweet Child of Mine's a good one because it's my favourite, but... And you can do this little move we just learnt. Alternate picking. Now this is a technique where essentially with your right hand you go down, up, down, up, down, up, whatever the note, whatever the string, it doesn't matter. Everything you do alternates between a downstroke and an upstroke. So to just give you a quick example, and we'll get onto that example in a minute. It can be any strings though. I did a down, down there, that's naughty. It should be always alternate for this example here. You can use it for soloing as well. It's a very common technique. So I'll give you a really good example from a real life piece of music here, because I always think those are the best ones, rather than giving you an exercise. This is from Guns N' Roses and Civil War, which does actually have an acoustic guitar intro to it, and I'm just going to give you the two chords that alternate with this alternate picking. That's convenient, isn't it? You've got E minor and then a G, and the G that we're using, by the way, is just 2 fingers, the 2-finger version. We don't need to bother with the top strings because we're just looking at the bottom 4 strings here. So the pattern is like this, always down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. You can gradually get faster and faster. I'm trying to give you an idea of the real speed of it here. So this is kind of up to speed. There's a little turnaround at the end which I will teach you later on in the lesson if you're interested in doing this as a loop. But let's just start off with the 2 chords and how they alternate here. We're going to use a 2nd and 3rd finger on this E minor. Nice and easy chord, one of the first ones you learn. And then the G, without the top strings coming into play, is a 3rd finger and a 2nd finger. So you can leave your 2nd finger in position. It's not really about the left hand, this whole exercise, it's more about the right hand here and this alternate picking. So the notes in question are like this. So you're going to play your bottom string with a down pick, your A string with an up pick, and then your D string with a down pick, back to the A, and then you're skipping over to the G, and then you're up again on this D, down on the A, up on the D, and then back to the E. And that pattern stays the same. The little hammer on here comes on this 2nd finger. You can add that in if you like, just for a little bit of something more advanced there. And I'll just run you through the turnaround section as well, which is so it's this F sharp note with your 2nd finger. And then put it down again on that D string on that 2nd fret, and then you can give yourself a chance to move your second finger back into position. So that full sequence just played through for you now sounds like this. You end up back on that bottom E note there. It's a really cool pattern to practice, especially when you want to take it really, really slow to practice this alternate picking style here. Just a little tip for you as well, if you're getting frustrated, because it can be very difficult, especially if you're starting off. Some options are to change the rhythm, so you can go. And then of course there's the other way, which I never can do properly. See, I need to practice that more as well. It's very, very tough. But if you can just give yourself those little variety options, then it'll be good for you. The other thing you can try is starting with an up pick, and then the whole thing feels like it's backwards in your mind. Difficult, and you can see it's not automatic to me, partly because I've played that riff so many times the right way round that to play it the wrong way round is difficult. And I think you'll find if you keep going round and round that an exercise like this will be super, super useful for you. And the reason why I would recommend doing alternate picking so much is that when you're kind of freestyling or when you're playing anything, if you end up in the wrong pick, if you end up on a downstroke rather than an upstroke and you're stuck, it kind of gives you a little bit of breaking out of the problem room, if you see what I mean. So if you're doing your alternate picking, and let's say you miss a note, and then you end up backwards, you've given yourself the versatility to be able to break back into the pattern. Maybe you could do a double up pick, and end up back on the correct pattern. So you're just giving yourself options. It's almost like a get out of jail, not for free, but a get out of jail card if you're playing in a live situation, or it's mostly for that, for jamming along to stuff. It will really help you with your soloing as well. Anyway, give it a go, let me know what you think. If there's any other lessons that you'd be interested in, just give me a shout down there. But I hope this little one was useful, a little guide to alternate picking on how to play guitar. If you like that, do support the channel either by subscribing, pressing like on this video, or even better, becoming a member. Looking forward to kind of unlocking the new emojis and all that good stuff in the future. But thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.